Hello, I'm Aidan Somerville. I'm a sophomore here at OHS, and today I'll be doing something a little different. Today I will be focusing on one specific student here at our school, Senior Leaf Rosenberg. Leaf is a poet and was one of my best friends. Today I would like to talk to you about my relationship with them and how it's developed from 2017 to now. We met in middle school, with me in 6th grade and Leaf in 8th, in a creative writing club that took place after school on the first Wednesday of every month. At the introductory meeting, the teacher who ran the club partnered everyone up, and as you might be able to guess, I was put with Leaf. In that meeting, we were assigned to write something short about our partner as an icebreaker activity, whether that be a short story starring the other person, or maybe some sort of introductory character analysis, or whatever else you wanted to do. Leaf wrote a poem about me, and before we go any further, I think it would be best to simply read it. I have it right here, so. Hello with a pupil dilated, and goodbye with an iris like thick wood smoke.
Dark and almost warm, just about. Ambition leaks through your pores, crystallizes like armor, holds your head high, but not too high, stunted by something above. Are you shielding your eyes? I'd like to know what steals those eyes away from me. So don't go. This is more than I should know, isn't it? Call it observant and ignore it, but not me, even if it is.
And I wrote a story about them eating lunch. Once we were both done writing, we traded pieces, and for a brief moment I was just floored, obviously. And they told me that my dumb piece of writing was cool too, but I'm sure that was just a common courtesy thing and not a genuine compliment. Regardless, we really did hit it off, and once the meeting ended, we traded phone numbers and promised to keep in touch. That night, we began talking more, and if I may be candid, something about them entranced me. They just seemed like such a unique person, and talking to them and getting to know them was a wholly new experience for me. They were admittedly somewhat of a recluse, but every time I got to learn some new below-surface level detail about them, it felt like, well, I can't exactly put a word to it, but it felt like something I wanted to continue feeling. Eventually, we started talking about writing again, and after a bit of pleading on my part, they showed me some other poems they wrote. And I'll say that again for emphasis, they really loved poems. I've literally never seen a piece of writing from them that wasn't one. And I wasn't the biggest fan of poetry before I met Leaf, but once I read more of their work, I was so deeply interested in just how present their voice was throughout it all. Like it could not have been written by any other person. I should probably read you another. My hands are in your hair, and you laugh at the way I fumble over my words.
I tell you the thoughts are my mother's language, and the most important things are lost in translation. Show me what gets lost, you say. I try my best. I try. My hands are in your hair. I feel like I've done this before. And I laugh with you as I fumble. I ask if you believe in destiny, if you think déjà vu is a hoax or a science, and you believe everything is a little magic. Let me show you, you say. You try your best. You try.
Now, I do understand that to an uninitiated eye, this all may just seem like your regular, usual poetry, and on a fundamental level, I guess it is, but what really intrigued me about these poems was how they gave the reader, me, access to the author, Leaf. These poems felt so deeply personal, to the point where it was almost impossible to not hear Leaf themselves through their writing. And while of course I still enjoyed talking to them normally, the process of getting to know a creator through their creations was such a fascinating concept to me, and they completely allowed me to indulge in that. With our age gap and grade difference, it was harder to connect with them the same way you could easily click with a fellow classmate. With everything still being separated by grades at that point, the only times where I could physically be around them were during those writing club meetings, which of course both of us continued going to as much as we could. But outside of that, our friendship had to majorly develop online. And with both of us knowing that neither of us could relate to what the other was doing in school, that essentially forced our conversations to be about anything else especially writing. Looking back, we never really stopped talking about our work, sharing completed drafts with each other, trading ideas, frantically showing the other person our newest incredible source of inspiration. Some of my favorite middle school memories didn't even take place inside of a school building, but were instead just the many hours that I spent looking at my laptop or pacing around my bedroom with my phone in my hand, simply existing with Leaf. We quickly formed a kind of bond that was something entirely new for me, and I realized that I just loved being with them and reading what they had to say to me, whether through texts or poems. I was able to learn who they were as a person through the words they put on my screen and the words they put on the page, and it was wonderful. I remember one day I asked Leaf who else they showed their writing to, and they told me that beyond me, they don't show their work to anyone else, that I was the only person who was reading what they wrote besides themselves. And that really confused me because, okay, they wrote so much. They would just crank out poem after poem, and if they didn't let me read it, then no one else did, and it was just immediately cast into the ether, almost never being brought up again. And maybe it's because I stuck to long-form writing, and I always need some immediate gratification to confirm that I wrote something good and to motivate myself to continue writing in the first place, but I just did not get it. And when I asked them why, they always avoided the question, and after asking enough times and always getting the same non-response, I dropped the question, but it never really left my head. Once Leaf graduated middle school, things naturally became a bit more complicated. My mom was understandably uncomfortable with me casually hanging out with someone who was 2 grades older than me, so by that point our friendship took place entirely online. And given the circumstances, it was going pretty great. While there were some bouts of tension that were only exacerbated by the fact that we mostly communicated only through text, every friendship gets like that at some point, and in any case, everything always resolved itself quickly enough, which I was incredibly thankful for. But as we entered the next summer, eventually leading into Leaf's sophomore year with me in 8th grade, I could tell that something was off. I know that's vague, but there was just this general sense of unease and apprehension every time that we talked. They weren't acting like themselves. Something was clearly bothering them. Let me read you one poem they sent me around the beginning of that school year. The way that I look at myself, the way that you look at yourself, those two different ways
have showed me I'll never be the same. Only in a mirror can we share the same reality. For my body shows me mutilation. Yours shows you pride and obligations. What I would do to tear that away from you, so that I can trade with mine, letting our bodies intertwine. Now please tell me why my sorrow can never go away.
There was this surprisingly sudden drop in the mood of Leaf's writing, and while they still produced as much as fast as they used to, the subjects of their poems began to get more and more concerning. They really started to fixate on the idea of body horror, and I won't read you any of the particularly brutal ones, but know that there were a notable amount of descriptions of them harming themselves in different ways, especially digging at their chest and legs, and there were even a few mentions of smashing mirrors and using the broken off shards to do things to their body, and they just kept sending these poems, and I was getting incredibly worried. They were so very clearly spiraling, and I needed to do something about it. I needed to know what was wrong so that I could help, but every time I asked if they were okay, they just gave some nonchalant, "Yeah, I'm fine" in response, and withdrew from me even further. I had to bear witness to my best friend ruining themselves, and vehemently doing everything they could to not get help. And I couldn't let them do that anymore, so I was not entirely aware of their social circles independent of me, but from what I could gather, I was one of the only people they were really close with, if not the only one. So I knew that part of the reason they were digging themselves that deep of a hole was purely because of the isolation they were in. There was nobody else to connect with, no other wall to have their words echo off of besides me. And while I promise I did everything I possibly could to help purely with my own words, letting them know that if there was anything I could do to make them feel better, I would do it, it was simply not enough. I could not stop this by myself. To truly fix what was wrong, I needed other people's help. My thought process was, if they couldn't muster up the courage to talk to more people themselves, to start digging themselves out of their hole, then maybe I could do that for them, or at least meet them halfway. I compiled some of their best writing, like the 2 poems I've showed you and some of their more recent works, and I showed them to my friends and my teachers, the people who I was close with and who I trusted, and I asked them what they thought, and just as I expected, they loved it. They really loved their writing just as much as I did. And a few people especially liked this one. Locks of gold, locks of mud brown, locks of tan sand, locks of old gray.
These scissors hold more power than me. They destroy yet create beauty, while all I know is how to create scars. Please just this once, let this power flow free. Let me be in control of my own needs.
Now to clarify, I did not pass their writing off as if it was my own or anything. I made people explicitly aware that I was sharing the work of someone who I cared very deeply about, someone who needed external opinions. And the opinions I got were that the people who read Leaf's poems had as deep as a personal connection to them as I had. It was working. I felt like a good person, and it felt like I was being listened to, like what I said really mattered to people for once. While I assured Leaf got all the credit for the actual poems, I was still capable of providing important context and my own interpretations of the words as their best friend, and people cared about what I had to say. I had value. I knew in my heart that I was doing a good thing, that I was helping, that I would be able to show Leaf that there was no reason they needed to hide or be worried about anything. And knowing that that was the truth made me so beautifully happy. So when I showed them this gift of opinions, when I showed them what their work meant to others and what impact it had, I was genuinely expecting things to get better. But nothing got better. That day, after I initially told them everything, they did not respond to me for a long while, but I distinctly remember checking my phone in my final class of the day and noticing an incredibly long outburst of a message in my notifications. In short, they were really upset with me for what I did. And I didn't exactly understand why, because at least for me, I need people to tell me that what I create is worth something, that it means something and influences people. And knowing that I had the opportunity to give that amazing feeling to my friend, I had to take advantage of that. I genuinely could not comprehend that they would think of compliments any differently from the way I do. And I tried explaining all this to them, but no matter what I said, they wouldn't listen to me. Our relationship became a lot more strained. I still tried engaging with Leaf as much as I possibly could, but if I got any response, it was clear through their tone that it was not something they wanted to give me. As much as I apologized, I couldn't fix it. I could tell I was losing them. Though they did still send me poems sometimes, just much less often compared to before. There were weeks at a time where neither of us said anything to each other, and I hated that more than anything else. This is the last poem they sent me in 2019. It's like I'm painting, poorly, sculpting with shaky hands,
jagged teeth, and a crooked smile. Prove I'm not an artist. I'm nervous, I tell you. I'm just nervous. Because what I won't tell you is that this is not my body. I'm a fraud. I'm a hack. I'm a cheater. I'm a liar. I'm a thief. This body that I wear and sculpt and paint is plagiarized from everyone I've ever known. I don't even know who it belongs to more. I might as well just hand it over to the audience.
I still read every single piece of writing they sent to me, but I could tell something was different. I couldn't hear Leaf like I used to. I could hear someone's voice through the words, but not theirs. They were becoming unrecognizable to me. At one point, I had to accept that I wholeheartedly did not know them anymore, and I genuinely did not know what to do with myself then. They actually did not speak a single word to me after New Year's Day. The last message they ever sent me was a poem. And it was March of 2020. It was this. You knew that this would happen as the world grows colder and I grow drier, drier and drier, like a well you've fully used up. All that I can do now is drop, drop, drop. As I waltz with the cold air, I ponder what will become of me. Soon enough I will meet the ground that lays beneath me, and soon enough I will meet the bottom of your foot. Stepping, stomping, crushing. I'm just one of many leaves to you, not important, significant, or deserving of respect. I am just your leaf, loosely, silently dropping. Please, don't remember me. I'm hoping you would understand me if I said that something sounded very final about this. Picture the situation I was in when they sent this to me. I was just made aware that school was letting out for spring break early, and my best friend, who hadn't spoken to me in months, sends me a poem that seems to feature a pretty blatant metaphor for death, ending with "Please don't remember me." I'm hoping you would understand me if I said that I was worried. I thought that they... What I felt after fully registering everything did not feel like grief. I felt nothing, less than nothing. And I was doing nothing too, besides just messaging Leaf over and over and over again, hoping somehow for a response, or even just a read or a seen or any other indicator that they were online and alive, but there was nothing. And I didn't know their address, so I couldn't check in with their family or anything. And it's not like I could have gone to their house if I wanted to anyways. And I couldn't talk about this to anyone else. No one knew them like I did. I just had to silently live with myself until one of my friends reached out to me. And they asked me if I had any more poetry, written by the same person who wrote the poems I showed to them however many months ago. I didn't have the heart to tell them. They really connected with Leaf's writing, and it really impacted them, just like me. And with everything going on at the time, of course they would want something like that to see themselves in. If I'm being honest, I really needed that too. But although they were used to the rougher topics Leaf would sometimes dive into, anything I haven't already shown them would have been so unflinchingly upsetting, and I really did not want to show them that, especially at a time like right then. So I did the only thing I thought I could do. I looked through the entirety of Leaf's literature, every single work they'd ever sent me, and I tried my best to approximate it. And I know how that sounds, but forgive my moral compass for being a bit askew when there's a magnet right next to it. And it wasn't out of any malintent. I was just trying to help people feel better. If I couldn't help Leaf, then maybe I could help the people who enjoyed their writing. I never considered myself a poet, but I put my best effort into writing things that could make people feel okay with themselves in my best impression of Leaf's writing style. And from my perspective, people couldn't tell the difference. I told people that, with Leaf being at home like the rest of us, they had a lot more time to write and a lot more ideas to write about. And while it was admittedly a lot of work to live up to that story, I still did it, because beyond it just being something to do, it felt like some sort of closure. And I felt responsible for creating something that was valuable to others. I felt important, being the only person able to give people this writing. And for the first time in years, I completely liked myself. Nothing was plaguing me anymore. To be honest, there were even some moments where I forgot I was supposed to be Leaf. I was just writing so much with more motivation than I've ever had, and writing for people who could immediately validate me and always wanted more. It was genuinely the best I had felt in a very long time. But what really made me happy is that the friend I referred to earlier was happy as well. They told me it was really nice to hear that Leaf was doing better. And I agreed with them. I actually kept this going all the way up until the start of my freshman year. But with things returning to somewhat normal, people didn't need Leaf's writing as much as they did half a year ago. Not to mention the burnout. I got exhausted after consistently writing for only a few months. I have no idea how Leaf did that for years. Though, I guess maybe that helps explain why things ended so badly. Speaking of that, under different circumstances, me now being a freshman could have been really exciting for me. Maybe I'd end up sharing a lunch period with Leaf. Maybe we'd participate in the same extracurriculars or clubs. Maybe if I took a creative writing class, I would see them there. But there was none of that. As the months passed, people stopped bringing up Leaf's writing as much. Some days I was convinced I was the only one who even thought of them. With nobody to show my or their work to, I didn't see a purpose in creating much in the first place, so I became somewhat stagnant for a lot of last year. Many great things happened my freshman year, and I met and became close with many great people, but everything was always tainted with this vague feeling of dread and guilt, almost. Like I was a failure. And it took almost an entire year to get rid of that feeling. Once I felt like I fully recovered, it was around the end of September this year, with me attaining some celebrity status here at this school. Feeling appreciated by so many people really helped me forget how messy the end of my relationship with this one person was. But then, after homecoming, I walked home and found this package on my doorstep, just this binder full of paper. I picked it up and there was an insert in the binder's front. It read,
Dear Aidan, thank you for your interest in my poems. I need to ask you not to speak to me anymore. Last year, as I laid in the hospital bed, I came to the realization that you have done one of the worst things you could possibly do to a person. I wondered if, at some points, you thought that I was writing my poems for you. I wondered if you saw me writing to cope with my mental ailments, especially my debilitating gender dysphoria, and sincerely thought that it was something that needed to be shared with the world. If you read the only thing that was completely and genuinely a piece of my true self at the time and thought it was okay, or a necessity even, to show that to others against my wishes, when you made me talk to you, I felt physically ill. You violated every single wall that I put up to keep myself safe for your own benefit and then continue to ask for more. You desperately need something that I cannot give to you. I literally do not have it. But I do have these poems, if that will make you any happier. I've completely changed since the last time you saw me, and this is all of my current self that I am comfortable sharing with you. I can't have you ruin this as well. I'm not who you knew me as, and I hope with all of my heart that you will never know me again. I recognize that all of this may not make sense to you just yet, and that's fine. You're not my problem to solve, but I hope that everything clicks one day and that you make peace with this thing you've been wrestling, and when you finally realize what I'm talking about, don't say anything. Sincerely, your Dearest Leaf.
I haven't been entirely honest with you. I did not know Leaf as Leaf. This was the first time I ever heard or read them refer to themselves by that name. Well, more importantly, this was their first communication with me in a year and a half. And after reading this, while I was incredibly thankful that they were alive and still well enough to write, there was this crushing reconfirmation of the doubt that I did not know who Leaf was anymore. Objectively, I didn't. I don't know what specifically happened while I was gone, but they have quite literally transitioned into a different person, and I missed all of that. I don't have any connection to them whatsoever now. I have fully lost them. But what I can be infinitely thankful for is that they gave me the opportunity to learn who they were again. Earlier, I talked so much about the idea of getting to know a writer through their writing, and now I really had the chance to prove that I could do it. With these poems that Leaf had graciously given me, I could catch up with them, so to speak. Through the way they write, through analyzing what they write about, I could learn who they really are. Not the person I knew, not my best friend, but their true, genuine self. And I thought, if I could really do this, and if I could get it right, then maybe that would be enough for them to forgive me. I'm not denying that I screwed up. I'm not saying that I didn't do an awful thing. I was just optimistic. Or even, I was in need. I needed them to forgive me. I needed to be close with them again. I am not me without them.
They always tell you about looks, maybe even sounds, but they never tell you, really,
Goodbye
how
to
it
the
feels.
friends I never
And they
believed
never
I could lose
ever
until
tell
I
you
did.
how it tastes or smells.
I remember the
or
first
isn't a
time
possible
we talked
concept.
for hours on end.
Alcohol
Maybe
or
I
eyes
heard
speaking
it
of
with
contentment. When a
But
blade
it's
got you
so
so
fast,
fast,
watch
no
your
time,
eyes
like
like
it
it
isn't
is
even your mouth.
holding my hand,
Circle
jealous,
of
not
causing
jealous,
out
now
now
and
and
now,
I hate
touch,
touch,
jealous,
heart,
your
and
eyes,
face,
or stickers,
not to
not
use
to
hot
use
or
it,
warm,
tears,
now
taking
think
this
this
sweet,
I am
this
your
is
glass.
them,
You're
I
something,
am
this is
my
art.
I'm afraid that I've done some really stupid things because I don't like myself. Leaf, you were utterly irreplaceable, and that was the most beautiful yet terrifying thing about you. That's why I'm making this news package, because I don't know how else I can reach you. I know I don't know what you look like, or even if Leaf is really your name, so all I can hope for is that your second period teacher makes you watch the news every day. Because I need to know if there's anything I can do for you to forgive me. I need to know what I need to do for you to talk to me again. If I sincerely apologize, as genuinely as possible, as many times as you want, will that be enough? I know I've done the worst thing I can do, so if I admit to that, will that fix anything? Will apologizing help? I'm not sure if it will, but there's nothing else that I can do. I don't know if I can ever forgive myself if you don't. Please, just tell me what you want. Tell me what I need to do to be with you again, to feel complete in a way that I only ever felt when I was around you. I saw myself in you and your work, and ever since what happened, I've just hated myself, and it feels like you're the only one who can teach me how to not be a terrible person. I need to know how to not hate myself for what I've done. Please. I am falling apart at the seams, and all I want is to know that I'm going to be okay. And to everyone else, I'm sorry. I know I have a lot to fix, but please don't hate me. Please. And, let's head back to the newsroom.